The story of William Sperry is one of the most puzzling and tragic tales you will ever hear. It makes you wonder how a man could live such a double life. Here was a guy who for a long time seemed truly devoted to God and to living a good, honest life. But somewhere along the line that all changed. He took a sharp turn off the straight and narrow path and went running headlong toward a life of crime. He ended up at the end of a rope at Tyburn. It is a story about how easy it is to fall, and how a taste for easy money can poison even the most religious heart. Part 1. An American Boyhood. William Sperry was born in England to a poor family around the year 1702. He and his brother did not get much schooling. Times were tough, and when William was about 14 years old, he and his younger brother fell for a classic con. A recruiter, one of those shady characters who rounded up cheap labor for the American colonies, promised them a better life across the ocean. The boys, probably seeing a chance for adventure, agreed to go. They were shipped off to America and sold into servitude for 7 years. It was a brutal system, not much different from slavery, for the term of their contract. But William was a survivor. After working off his time, he found himself in Philadelphia, a place that was different from anywhere he had ever been. The people there, mostly Quakers, were serious about their faith. They lived simply and honestly. It made a huge impression on the young man. Surrounded by this piety, William had a change of heart. He felt ashamed that he could barely read, so he worked hard to teach himself. The kind man he worked for saw his desire to learn, and even paid for him to have writing lessons. Now, William did not become a Quaker himself. He stayed true to the Church of England, but he threw himself into his religion. He read the Bible and other good books, and he was a regular at church every Sunday. And get this, the church was in Westchester, a good 5 miles from where he lived. He would walk that whole distance there and back just to worship. That is dedication. It seemed like he was on the right track, building a solid, virtuous life for himself. Part 2. The Pirate's Poison. Eventually, William left his master's house to work for another planter. Then, an opportunity came up to work on a trading ship, sailing to different ports in America. He loved it. The sea, the travel, the new places, it was an exciting life. But like all good things, it was about to come to a crashing halt. One morning, just as the sun was coming up, their ship was attacked. It was the infamous pirate, Captain Edward Lowe, and his crew. They were overwhelmed in no time. Lowe, a brutal and vicious man, saw that William was a strong, smart young guy, and wanted him to join the pirates. But William, his virtuous principles still intact, begged to be let go. He wanted no part of that life. As it happened, William had done the pirate captain a favor by tipping him off to a mutiny plot among his own men. Lowe felt he owed him one. So, seeing that William would not be swayed by threats or promises, he did something uncharacteristically generous. That night, he had William put safely ashore on one of the Leeward Islands. You would think William would have been grateful and horrified by the whole pirate encounter, and he was at first. But being on that ship, seeing the pirates grab whatever they wanted, living a life with no work and no rules, it planted a seed. Dangerous seed. He started to get an itch, a desire to get money the easy way without working up a sweat. Not long after, he ended up serving on a British Navy warship. And what do you think he saw there? They captured a pirate vessel. The whole crew was put on trial in New England. Every single one of them was hanged except for 5 who could prove they were forced into it. You would think watching all those men swing from the gallows would have completely killed any lingering fascination with crime. But the damage was done. The seed had already sprouted. Part 3. A highwayman in London. William eventually made his way back home to England. He got married. Now he had a wife to support, but no real money, and no good way to make it. The pressure was on. He fell in with a bad crowd, a bunch of young, reckless guys with no respect for the law. William always claimed he was not led astray by anyone, that it was his own choice. But whatever the reason, He became the new menace of the roads around London. Places like Hampstead, Islington, and Marylebone, the villages just outside the city, became his hunting grounds. One night, William and 4 of his buddies heard that Hampstead was the place to be for high-stakes gambling. Rich men were winning and losing fortunes every night. The gang figured they would help themselves to some of those winnings. As evening fell, they hid in a dry ditch alongside a footpath waiting for dark so they could move to the main coach road. They had not been there long when 2 men walked by. Some of the gang wanted to jump them, but William said no. They were small fish. Then they heard one of the men say to the other, "There is that gambler D.M. behind us. He won at least 60 guineas tonight." That was all they needed to hear. They let the 2 officers pass and waited for the real prize. Soon enough, M. came strolling down the path. The gang surrounded him instantly. 2 in front and 2 behind. They grabbed him, dragged him to the edge of a hedge, and shoved him into the very ditch they had been hiding in. They all jumped down on top of him and started going through his pockets. The gambler was smart. He tried to talk his way out of it, saying he had lost big that night, and only had about 50 shillings on him. He offered up a silver watch and a crystal ring, hoping that would satisfy them. And it might have worked if they had not overheard that conversation. They knew he was lying. One of the older, more experienced thieves got right in his face. "Listen, you rogue," he snarled. "Only a liar like you would give gentlemen of our profession so much trouble. We know you won 60 guineas today at Belsai's house. Hand them over now, or we will assume you swallowed them. And if that is the case, I have a tool right here that will help us check the contents of your stomach." Terrified, M. reached under his arm and pulled out a green purse. Inside was a banknote for £50 and 18 gold guineas. They took it all, tied him to a fence post, and disappeared into the night, looking for more victims. They roamed the fields until late, but there were too many people on the roads to risk another robbery. On their way home, they heard a coach racing toward them. It was Sir W.B. driving himself with 2 ladies inside. His servants were way behind. The gang saw their chance. 2 of them grabbed the horses on either side. But Sir W. was a hell of a driver. He just cracked his whip and shouted, and the horses lunged forward, dragging both men to the ground. The gang fired a couple of pistols after the coach, but Sir W. and his ladies got away clean. Part 4. The Drury Lane Trick. About 3 weeks later, the gang was walking down Drury Lane, a street known for its taverns and ladies of the night. They saw a young gentleman go into a tavern with a fancy woman. One of the gang recognized him. He knew the guy had recently married a rich heiress, and that the girl's father, who was also the young man's guardian, was super protective of the family name. A nasty plan was born. They slipped into a nearby alehouse, and the guy who knew the family wrote a letter. It said they had a warrant for a lewd woman who was pregnant by the young gentleman. She had escaped, they wrote, but was now with him at a specific tavern in Drury Lane. To avoid a public scandal, they were informing the family so they could handle it privately. They sent one of their crew to deliver the letter, but by mistake they gave it to the young wife. It worked perfectly. In less than half an hour, the father, the wife, and another family friend, who happened to be visiting, stormed into the tavern. They heard the young man's voice from behind a door, threw it open without knocking, and found him with a woman. Chaos erupted. Shouting, accusations, tears, the whole scene. In the middle of all the noise, 2 of the gang, who had slipped into the next room and were dressed in their finest clothes, casually stepped out, pretending to be innocent bystanders, curious about the commotion. In the confusion, they easily slipped through the crowd. One of them picked the young gentleman's pocket, lifting 25 guineas, a gold watch, and 2 silver snuff boxes. They walked out of the tavern, without anyone even noticing. By the time the family realized they had been robbed, the thieves were long gone. Part 5. The Final Robbery and the Gallows. William's luck was about to run out. His last job was a small-time, almost pathetic crime. He held up a man named Thomas Golding near Bromley. The guy did not have any money on him, so William, in a moment of desperate frustration, just took all his clothes. That was the mistake that sealed his fate. He was caught, tried at the Old Bailey, and convicted for the robbery. He had no money, no powerful friends, and no hope of a pardon. From the moment he was locked up, something in William seemed to change again. It was like the old religious William from Philadelphia came back. He confessed to everything, showing genuine remorse. He accepted that he deserved to die for what he had done. He faced his fate with a strange calm, preparing his soul for the next world. On the morning of his execution, Monday, May the 24th, 1725, he was taken to the infamous Tyburn gallows. He was only about 23 years old. Witnesses said, his face looked peaceful, even cheerful. He showed every sign of being truly sorry for his sins. And with that, William Sperry, the pious servant, the desperate husband, the highwayman, left the world behind, a mystery to the very end.